Is that something you guys can start looking into? Does that allow for more complex systems to be integrated into your homes? Is that something that could give you a competitive edge? And definitely industrial systems engineering. So what is your concept of getting it here? What are the logistics that it takes to make that happen? This is just a portion of our team. Like I mentioned, we have a group of architects, electrical, mechanical, green engineers, people from business, many people from, I think we have 35 different countries represented within our team. This is something that we find very, very important. It's something that adds a lot of diversity to our team, and diversity allows us to challenge the way that we think initially. And then our sponsors. I know that many of you have come up to me already and asked me, how do you raise money? How do you find a way to create partnerships? We've been working a very long time to secure a lot of these partners. And the way that we go about that is we find a way to let them use our home as a vehicle to showcase their technology. We use a way to integrate their engineers into our project that allows them to find the value in what you're doing. So don't just come to them and ask them for a toilet or a refrigerator. Find a way to show them that this is the next hottest house. This is the next most innovative way to do something. And then they'll find a way to say, oh, this isn't me just selling a product, this is me selling an entire environment. Where do we begin? Many of you are very new to this competition. This is the 10 contest from Dubai. Many of these are very similar with you. But the way that we always begin is you look at those rules. You understand, I know that they're long and exhaustive, but you go through every single point. You task different people with reading specific sections based on their expertise, and then you develop a strategy based on that. Every single one of these is a contest. Every single one has points associated with it. Every single one has a weighted value as well. So be able to go through that point breakdown and find, is it beneficial for me sometimes if I have to make a decision between saving energy or doing a water draw? You have to be able to make those decisions in real time. Things don't always work out as they should in the competition. Also, where is the project located? We're doing a competition in Dubai, but yours is in Morocco. So what are the site conditions? What are your foundations like? So many teams begin their design, they become this beautiful rendering, they have this great concept, and then they don't know how to build the thing. You have to begin this entire process understanding that you're building it somewhere else and then you're bringing it here. So finding what are the site constraints, you guys, it's right across the street. I would spend some time going over there and actually evaluating what's going on. Also, what are the constraints imposed by the competition? What are the solar envelope restraints? What is the maximum buildable area? Are you taking an approach where you're maximizing that, or are you minimizing that? What are the existing passive or active techniques used in your region? Are there cooling towers? Someone had mentioned before that everything is new, this is something that we're trying to push innovation, but a lot of innovation happened 1,000 years ago when we didn't have electricity, we didn't have all of these new technologies. Everyone still lived. It might have been a little bit less comfortable, but can we find ways to make both active and passive work together? And also, how do you understand the culture? Many of you are from many different countries. I'm glad to see that many of you are partnering with Moroccan countries as well, but we found a great challenge with ourselves in Dubai that we have a very different set of cultural understanding. So finding a way to get some insight from a professional, from a teammate, and actually listen to them. Don't just make it about, I need to do this because it's the next coolest thing. Is that actually going to resonate with the public that you're trying to preach it to? And then find a creative workspace. I know many of you are from amazing universities. Some of you rent space. We find that we need to find the kind of busiest, most active spot on our campus. So this is our architecture building. We have actually relocated all of our team into this space. So we're all one team. We're always sharing ideas. It's not something where we're making a conference call across campus. We really do try to co-locate. That's the most effective way to build a team. And then who has won before, like I mentioned. This is the Department of Energy website with the Solar Decathlon. And you can notice down in this area, there are quick links to every single competition. And then over here on every single team page, there are the construction documents, there are the project manuals, there are the menus. How many teams have done this before you? You are never starting from zero. There have been winners and there have been people who have not done as well, but they might have won in a specific category. Go through the past winners, find the ones that you think resonate with your project, and then start from there. Begin copying a little bit, you'll find that there's so much innovation that has happened beyond that point. And then attend a Solar Decathlon event. Like Richard mentioned, there are so many upcoming ones all around the world. We find it invaluable. You go there, you go through the tour, you talk with the teams about how their appliances are performing, what their tribulations were when they were trying to build their house, what broke, what's working well. that has helped us immensely. We've actually redesigned our house. This is now our fourth iteration of just the Dubai house because we gained so much insight from these other competitions. And yeah, that's in this lower Decathlon event. How are we building this house? So many of you, like I mentioned before, I started to see some initial renderings, some different ideas. I think the biggest thing to remember is this has to come here. In some way it has to come apart and then has to be rebuilt here. You can attempt to build it with all of your materials here. You probably will not finish, honestly. We've been to how many different events, that approach really does not work. So I'd find a way to start thinking in your mind now as you begin designing your house, ways to break down those components. So even from our 2002 house, we had different modules. We had structural modules, we had plumbing modules. They all came together into a very interesting idea, but this was our first understanding about how we break down that construction process. And also using flexible space in your homes. So this is always a limited footprint, but there's going to be a lot of people coming through. How can you demonstrate a more sustainable future if all we do is just add and add to our homes? Can you find a way to reduce square footage out of your home, but then also make it flexible as well? Looking at some examples, the first iteration that we did were 2 large modules. This is the one kind of non-complex side and the more complex side as well. And then in 2005, we took a different approach. We looked at how can we actually rebuild this into one unit. You'll notice when you come to the site, almost maybe half of the things are going to go not as you planned. One of them is going to be some things have deflected in transit. Some things don't come together as perfectly as they did on site. Trying to minimize the amount of parts that you have to assemble on site is hugely beneficial. So for this, instead of having things spread out in different modules, we really consolidated that plan into one service space in the back and then a serve space on the southern side. You'll notice that this is our tour route, one clean line, where before it was a circuitous route going through. This allowed us to quickly move people through our home, quickly communicate our ideas, but then also have a very clean plan that was flexible too. So one of our initial ideas were kind of looking at these different modules and how they come together, realized that was not the way we wanted to go. We actually looked at borrowing ideas from the trailer industry. Typically in the United States that might be a more of a low-cost solution, but this is actually looking at how you can take the structure of an existing road-going unit that's going to transport your house anyways and make that into your home. So our idea here is we actually used the structure of a double drop lowboy. And for transit, obviously there's going to be bumps in the road, there's going to be some things that go along the way. We actually used the structure of the deck, folded that up, and allowed that to be the kind of brace beam as it was going down the highway. When we got on site, that was able to lower down, and then we infill those pieces for the deck. So here's just a quick animation of that. Coming to the site, removing the truck, bogie and gooseneck, and then these are able to come down to form that deck. That took about 3 days, by the way, so that was not a very long time. This is that traveling down the highway itself, so you can notice we're shipping that thing as one piece with a police escort because it was very oversized. And then our last house that we did was the Lumen House, competed in the 2009 and 2010 competitions. And we really looked to a modern classic, so that everyone knows from architecture school, the Mies van der Rohe Farnsworth House. We looked at an amazing idea about, even though this is a sustainable house, how do we build it out of all glass? How can it actually respond to the environment and be able to change itself due to changing weather conditions? So using a custom frame again, where before we bought essentially a truck, we realized some aspects of that are not as good. So we took the structural concepts from that and made our own custom solution. This is it traveling in Madrid here. Again, this one kind of shrink wrap piece. And this was it delivered on site. So this was where Stuttgart started on day one, and this is where we started on day one. We came in, we unshrink wrapped our house, we connected it into the grid, made a few simple electrical connections, and we had 6 days to test our house while everyone else was building their home. So begin to think about how, you have a very limited time here, how you begin to think about more testing equals more success. And our idea with this was responsive architecture. So looking at how you can begin to integrate smart technologies into your home. We integrated a weather station that was able to look a few days out, was able to actually plan how it was going to respond. So we have a shade screen and an insulation screen. So if ever the sun comes out behind the clouds, automatically the screens deploy and it shades the home, while also adding privacy but allowing for passive ventilation still through the house. So how can you use new technologies, motors, moving components to be able to transform the facade of your home to perform better? And then this is our new Slow Decathlon Middle East house. We've taken that entire idea where before we had shipping just one piece. That thing costs, honestly, 200,000 US dollars to get there to Madrid, which is an astronomical amount of money because it was oversized, overweight in every way. Now we're looking at concepts as to why are we shipping space when we can just ship the technology instead? So we've designed our house to be able to fit onto an airplane, actually. That costs way more than $200,000, so even though it's a great concept, we are not going to be transporting it that way. But looking at multiple ways, if you're talking about your house, you're talking about how it can get there, what is the market viability of this? Are you saying that I can build a house in Morocco and ship it to China? What's the most economical way to make that happen? The way that we're doing this now is breaking it into smaller components, where before we had that one large piece, you actually look at how each room has a set of technology that is able to define that space. All of these are no wider than 2'8" wide, except for some of these large components which directly fit onto a truck. And so with this, we've allowed ourselves one more day of construction, but it almost, it is a fifth of the shipping cost, and it's twice as far from before. So always understanding from the get-go how it's going to get there, how it is structured, and then how that can eventually save you money because all of you have to raise all of that money. This is how it's fitting on those 5 trucks now to Dubai, and sequencing these things as well. When they begin to be put onto a truck, know that they have to be unloaded by one crane in, one at a time. So you don't want to put your roof on site first if you don't have your foundation. So begin to think about the components and how they break down onto that shipping unit. Biggest question I think everyone's looking for is how do you fund this thing? Like I mentioned before, industry partners, hands down. Many of you might have wealthy benefactors from alumni, from individual companies, but we found that, like I said, go to each individual company, allow them to understand, hey, Lutron, you want some smart window shade integration? You should talk with Pilkington. They're looking at the electrochromatic glass. Can you two work together? Find the synergies and make the connections in the industry, and then allow them to use your home as that test vehicle. Another thing we've done, many of you are established universities, going to your alumni, going to firms, going to engineering and architecture offices, present your project, get feedback from that, but also ask them to sponsor a student, to donate their time to help you understand structural calculations, things like that. All of those take time, all of those take money. And also, we just started doing this year, crowdfunding campaigns. We all have social media now, we all have ways of looking online. There's an amazing amount of support, even if this is not your university, there are many people around the world that want this project to succeed. Find those people. And then also, you may have a university or a government that will support you. Unfortunately, neither of ours are, but that's okay. We're excited to be here nonetheless. Set a budget for yourself. That comes initially from your concept. Is this an affordable home? Is it going crazy? Is it somewhere in between? So set that budget initially, but revise said budget. It will never be exactly what you think. Every time you buy something, every time something doesn't work out, go back. Understand if you have a set budget, what you need to cut, what you need to prioritize to make it still a successful project. How are we testing this? The biggest thing that the teams forget is that you have this, 18 months now to build your house and test this? You should use 6 of those months to test these components. Using simulations, so before even building your house, understand 3-dimensionally how it's going to perform. There are a multitude, Energy Plus, multiple ways that you can test, even with Revit plugins now. Find how the house is going to perform initially, and then test it in real time. This is an idea, or this is just to give you an idea of the 2017 competition for the refrigerator. So some of the appliance scores here, you can see UC Berkeley and U Denver did very well in this competition. Every single bit of this information is online. Every single data point that you can find here is also associated with the spec. So the way that we chose all of our appliances this time is we went through the last competition, which will be the newest kind of set of appliances that are coming out. We looked at what performed the best, and we noticed there was a definite trend with a certain set of appliance manufacturers. Start with that. For the Lumen House, we actually went through 3 different refrigerators because we found the first one, tested it, found it exceeded the temperature values. Got the next one, same thing, finally the third one worked. So there's the ability and the time to test these things and replace them when you give yourself enough time. Also looking at water strategies, especially here in Africa and the Middle East, how this has become more than just an energy competition. This has become a social competition, it's become a water competition. What are your unique strategies? Is it gray water filtering? Is it making something that's beautifully landscaped? Is it something that is able to take care of itself? Every single part of this competition, you can find an innovative way to compete. Electrical testing as well. This has become much more stringent and much more complex. I'm not sure if they have batteries in this competition or not. But every single component needs to talk to one another. Many people just think, oh, there's just a solar panel on the roof. No, there's a power optimizer, there's an inverter, there's a battery, there's transmission lines. All of these are innovative ways for you to look at new ideas for your project. Using lighting and different materials, innovative materials. So again, scouring the internet, talking to your industry partners, what is the next thing? This is even in 2002, we coated our ceiling. Road signs have a reflective 3M material on there, which throws the light. Instead of thinking about that just as an industrial or kind of transportation application, how can you use different industries, innovations, and bring them into the housing market? And then how are we sharing this? Like Richard mentioned before, this is a competition that is supposed to inform the public, but also inform ourselves and our different industry partners. So we've always had a content calendar, find a way to break down what your message is, and then how each social media post, how each item on your website is adding to your overall vision, because all of this is judged at the end of the day. How many followers you have, how many events you've had, what is the content that's going to sell your house. Creating a website for yourself too. It's a great way. Initially you're talking to a client or to a potential sponsor. Please check out our website, see what we're all about, get back to us with the ways you think you can help us. Our different social media accounts as well. It's also something I would suggest you doing. Follow every single competition that's going on right now. Follow those team social media pages. Here, ours located here, but every single team now, we're watching them every single day. Oh, they're getting ahead. Oh, they're testing this product. Okay, can we do the same thing? And then get involved with your community. It could be something just like volunteering at a local farmer's market, but then as you're talking with people, you're talking about your project. Oh, this guy works at an engineering firm. He wants to help you out because you sold him some pie. Connection. That's fantastic. When should we finish this thing? The answer is yesterday. When should you start is right now. Honestly, start mocking up different areas of your home. Start buying the different pieces of technology. Start testing every single thing. And create a project schedule, but then be able to revise that schedule. What we did for ourselves is we set intermediate deadlines. So we had an opportunity to exhibit our home at the National Building Museum in Washington, D.C. So we used that to push ourselves to finish the thing about 3 months early. Then it was able to be tested while we were there. We were able to give sample tours as we went through. It allowed us to really kind of take a step back and finish up other aspects of our design besides building. It also traveled to New York City and when it was on Times Square in Good Morning America, which is a huge news outlet in the United States. So finding a way to integrate the news and the media into your project, they will help sell the project for you. The second that we did this, we started getting calls from sponsors, calls from people who wanted to be involved in the project. So really try and spread the word with what you're doing here. And also at a Green Build event in Chicago. So this is from the USGBC, which is our Green Building Council in the United States. They will be your biggest advocate because they're the ones trying to push these sustainable initiatives in your country. So find those voices that can help you advertise this in your country. Contact shipping places ASAP. For us, we're finishing mid-July, so we're able to test for a few months, but then we're shipping our house at the end of August. It's going to take us about 42 days to get to Dubai, so start working backwards. You talk to the shipper first, say where you are, where you need to go, what the expectation is, and build that schedule backwards. And then, how do we compete in the competition? What are different strategies? I think the biggest one is becoming a unified team. And from what I've noticed here, you guys are coming from a lot of different countries, a lot of different universities. Don't get caught in the trap that I am the architecture university and I'm the engineering university. Find a way to really unify yourselves. And we found having the team brainstorm about what our team uniform is going to be allows everyone to share their voice and be able to have a really cool way to be intimidating at the end of the day. Give the home a brain. I think too often we are kind of stuck in the fact that my home needs doors, it needs windows, it needs things that are, we can see and we can touch, but what are autonomous ways that your homes can begin to perform outside of how you're interacting with them? We use many different products, but kind of a control system from Siemens. And like someone was mentioning before, having sensors placed everywhere throughout the house, having redundant sensors, because the Solar Decathlon is going to have their own sensors, you need to have yours right next to that, so you're reading the same information. your home is responding before the sensor is even reading that information. Monitoring alongside the competition. So we developed an iPad app where a group of our students were sitting actually outside, were able to see exactly how the house was performing. Once we made enough energy, boom, we did a hot water draw. It would drop back down. Start building up energy again, do the laundry. Find a way to always know how your house is performing before your house browns out or starts using energy from the grid. Expect the unexpected. I know that the competition is going to be held here in October, and apparently the rainy season is in November, but it's pretty cold this year and it's supposed to be hot. So I think you need to understand that something will always go wrong and be able to understand how you're going to adapt if things do go wrong. And then furthering your concept, I think that this is an amazing competition to begin to think about the future innovations of housing, but it also is limiting in some ways. Every single one of these is in its own solar village. It's a single family home essentially. Finding a way to make that impactful beyond just a solar decathlon concept. Many teams have looked at renovation strategies. We started looking at our Lumen House, how it can become, duplexes or townhomes, or many different, ways that we can reconfigure our initial concept to have a bigger market impact. And then practice your tours on everyone. The biggest thing that you need to understand is that this is, yes, it is a qualitative but also a quantitative competition. The jury is going to be part of this as well. So as you're touring them throughout, they're listening to your comments, they're seeing how you're performing. They evaluate it based on how you, as the students, are selling your concept. So talk to your grandma, talk to your mom, talk to your siblings, talk to the most diverse group that you have, because it's going to be a diverse group of judges, but also a diverse group of people coming through your home. Biggest thing, have fun. And this is an overwhelming competition. Building a house takes an entire army, it takes a whole village. But at the end of the day, we always try and have monthly events to get the team together to show that, yes, this month was crazy terrible, but we're going to go have a potluck tonight. We're going to celebrate because we have accomplished so much. So with that, best of luck. Please, feel free to reach out to me at any point, but I wish you all the best of luck.